Yeah, I'll react to that, sure. Hi guys. Preemptive like history with Hilbert. I love this channel. Great videos. Languages of the British Isles. Okay. Hi everyone, if you're new, my name's Connor. I like to learn and watch stuff, connect back with you Brits. And let's go. Original link to the video, top description. Discord, if you'd like to join. The link is also in the description. Hope you're all doing well. Let's learn a bit, shall we? Preemptive like.
English is the third most widespread language in the world, behind Spanish and Standard Chinese. It's spoken from England to Canada to South Africa to New Zealand to Australia. You know, thanks to the old empire. Wait, that's not what I'm meant to be talking about in this video.
So is that, do you think, by first language? Because I would be shocked if English wasn't the #1 most commonly known to speak language. But in terms of first language, or maybe I'm wrong, I don't know.
What was it? History with Hilbert, history, Dutch, Frisians, languages. That's the one. In this video, I'm going to be having a look at which other languages are spoken in the British Isles, because while English is its most famous export, it's by no means the only one. So let's have a look. Now in this video, I'm going to be looking at country by country which languages there are in the British Isles. And in this video, I've decided to put Ireland and Northern Ireland together simply for geographic reasons.
Uh-oh.
So please, nobody start a war in the comments. The first country I'm gonna...
What was I gonna say? Well, oh yeah, where's the Isle of Man flag? Okay.
That is Scotland. I hope you enjoyed the video. The most famous and romantic language to come from Scotland has got to be Scottish Gaelic. Some basic phrases include Slán Java, a toast.
Guys, I really like to try and pronounce things, okay? No offense meant. I try. I like to try.
Some basic phrases include Slán Java, a toast. Kimmerahashif, how are you? La Nuv Andre Madue, Happy St. Andrew's Day. Alba Gabra,
Braveheart. Alba Gabra.
Scotland forever. Claymore, meaning big sword. Sassenach, meaning Englishman or foreigner, literally meaning Saxon, which dates back to the Dark Ages. And Guma Fada Beo Stuart. Long live the Stuart. I mean, come on, this is History with Hilbert. I'm gonna put some history in there. Where in Scotland do they speak Gaelic? Mostly in the Western Highlands and Islands. Islands such as Lewis, Harris, Darren, Bob, Mark, and Thomas. Oh wait, no, those aren't the names, hold on. Islands like Lewis, Harris, Eust, Skye, Tyree, and Islay. These are...
Guys, my coffee's right there. How do you get from here to... One sec. How do you get, like, if you're trying to get from Glasgow or Edinburgh and get to Lewis, this island, is flying your only option? Is there like a ferry service? Like, how many of these non-connected islands like have a bridge to them? You know, like, how do you get there?
Are the places where Gaelic has remained the strongest, even though many areas of Scotland which used to be Gaelic speaking have now either become English speaking or both English and Scots speaking, but I'll get on to that in a minute. Now, Gaelic is a Celtic language, and it originally came from Ireland. Now, why did the Scottish Gaelic come from Ireland? Well, I'll explain that. Once upon a time, there was a powerful family living in the north of Ireland called the O'Neill. Now, if you think this name looks familiar, well, that's because this is the old Irish version of the modern name O'Neill, still an important and large family. Now, the O'Neill expanded their kingdom and founded a kingdom called Dal Riada. And Dal Riada was a kingdom that originally was both across the north of Ireland and the southwest of Scotland. And this is how...
Pay attention, guys. Phones away.
Gaelic from and the southwest of Scotland, and this is how Gaelic from Ireland came into Scotland. Now, Gaelic is actually not an official language of the United Kingdom, but there is a BBC radio and TV channel which is entirely in Scottish Gaelic called BBC Alba. And Alba, as you can remember from Alba Cabra, which means Scotland forever, is the Gaelic word for Scotland.
I'm now going to play for you a native speaker speaking some Scottish Gaelic.
Oh, cool.
Smisha Rosemary. Chaim hokal an líst. Smisha Rosemary, chaim hokal an líst Jace an balabik idir vil gearna mónug. Va Gaelic ag mahad, a charok Gaelic ag mabahad, agus leishin chaim hokal an dachi far a rushin clech go beurle fat na chiche. A chaganyan sin chaim idir tron skol agus hion sich me Gaelic go art ide. Chum an oorsin siachat imimetuch bliana chicask Trevian Gaelic, agus an oorsin elisach in Gaelic, agus elisach in Gaelic.
It sounds, I'm no expert, but it sounds like a mix. It sounds Nordic. It sounds like a mix. It's like if Norway, England, and Denmark had a baby. It, like, you know, like the Scandinavia, Norway say about Denmark, they have like flute, like they have like a weird throat sound. I kind of heard a bit of that, but it definitely sounds Nordic, and then it sounds a little bit of like English-y, which would make sense because like the Vikings would have like gone in the North Sea towards Iceland, eventually Quebec, and probably, you know, makes sense. Cool place too.
Elisach in Gaelic, agus elisach in Gaelic.
Scots way will was blood. Scots one bruise has often led.
Now, there is some debate as to whether Scots should be considered a language or just a dialect of English. Now, I'm going to make a video about this in future, but for this one, I'm just going to treat it as a language. Now, we in Scots means small. It doesn't have the same meaning as in English. Lads and lasses are boys and girls.
What's the difference between a dialect and an accent?
Auld Lang Syne is a song which is often sung at New Year, and it essentially means a long time ago. Am fé Glasgow means I'm from Glasgow.
Am fé Glasgow.
A wee drink of iron brew means
a wee drink of iron brew.
A drink of bleach. Wa wat na vecht for Charlie is what.
Wa wat na vecht for Charlie. Charlie.
Why wouldn't I fight for Charlie? Again, the Jacobite references. And if you're Dutch, a lot of words in Scots are a lot more like Dutch words. And why is that? Well, you'll just have to wait until the history of Scots for that one. Their sewer slays in Athelbraes and the deals at Killycrankio.
Their sewer slays in Athelbraes and...
This is from a very... Their sewer slays in Athelbraes.
The sewer slays in Athelbraes.
And the deals at Killycrankio.
And the deals at Killycrankio.
This is from a very famous song, which I very much enjoy. Link will be in the description. So where do they actually speak Scots? Well, they speak it on Orkney, not Orkney, Aberdeenshire, Angus and Ayrshire. These are the regions where most Scots speakers are. So if you remember, Scottish Gaelic was very much, or Gaelic rather, was very much spoken in the west, on the Highlands, in the islands. Scots is the other side. Scots is mostly spoken in the east, again clustering around these regions of Shetland and Orkney, Aberdeenshire, Angus and Ayrshire. Now, again, to look at the language tree, Scots is...
Where is it? Yiddish is a Germanic language. Interesting. Low German, Anglo-Frisian, Old English, English, Scots.
is a Germanic language. Now, I sort of hinted at this earlier. Scots comes in from Old English. Now, I'll have a quick look into this in just a minute, and its closest relations are then languages such as, obviously, English is a close relation. Then you've also got a very close relation, as I said, to Dutch. You can recognize words, Frisian as well, and to a lesser extent the other Germanic languages there. The reason that the Scots language actually exists is because of the Kingdom of Northumbria. Now, Northumbria, unlike the modern-day county of Northumberland, was a lot larger, and actually Northumbria stretched right the way from north of the Humber and sometimes even south of the Humber when it occupied the Kingdom of Lindsey around modern-day Lincolnshire. It also went right the way up thanks to King Oswald's conquest, or it was probably Oswy actually, who conquered parts of southern Scotland, right the way up to, I think, Abercorn was the northern border of Northumbria. Now, the Northumbrians spoke Old English because they were Anglo-Saxons, and they brought the Old English language into Scotland as well.
Hold on. Oh, I thought Old English, the language of the English. I think that'd be a cool video for like next.
It's absolutely fascinating. And they brought the Old English language into Scotland as well. Now, when Old English was changed and altered because of the Normans and because of French, it evolved into Middle English. Yet in Scotland, where this was much less, the language remained much truer to its original Old English roots, and the Scots language was born.
I'm now going to play the Scots audiobook version of Peter Rabbit by Beatrix Potter, called Peter Kinnan in Scots.
But roon the end o' a cucumber frame, wha did he no meet wi' but Maister McGregor? Maister McGregor was doon in his hunker setting off sma' kale, but he louped up and ran after Peter, wagging a scartle and roaring out, "Stop, Briggener!" Peter was gey sair frichtit, he stured all ower the garden, for he couldna mind the way back to the yett. He tint ane o' his shin amang the kale, and the other she amang the tatties. Efter lossing them, he rinnan off hours and get fester, sae that a jalouse he might have won awa altogether, gin he hadna misfortunately run into a grosset poke, and gotten clocht. Jalouse he might have won awa altogether, gin he hadna misfortunately run into a grosset poke, and gotten clocht by the large buttons on his jacket.
I could understand 80% of what she said, which is pretty cool.
Hello to Mees mine heist leans wallet castle Lego sheer
That sounded like
I'm going to cover is sometimes called
that sounded like a very different language.
Gaelic, but this can be quite confusing as it gets. I'm going to cover is sometimes called Gaelic, but this can be quite confusing as it gets confused with Scottish Gaelic, and Irish people actually prefer when the language is called Irish. Now, if you
Scots, Scottish Gaelic, and Gaelic are three different languages. Something new I learned.
Full words and phrases in Irish are falcha, which means welcome, uishkaba, which is the Irish word for whiskey and is actually where whiskey comes from uishkaba to whiskey. It's a bit of a long one, but that's where it comes from. Poke mahone, which is a rather less polite.
Guys, are languages do languages evolve over time? It's not like people like sit down over time and have different populations from each other and you used to speak the same language and you're like, all right, well, let's come up with a word. So it's basically slang, and like slang words, it seems like is what changes. It seems like slang words of old words turn into the real form of new words. Does that make sense? Am I right?
That's where it comes from. Poke mahone, which is a rather less polite one. You'll have to look that one up yourself, but the Irish are quite proud of it. Now, the main way that most people come into contact,
like for instance, like Latin, like was it Latin, and then, you know, the Latin-based languages, basically a few different groups weren't in touch with each other a lot, and they all use different slang to talk about different things, or maybe different words to describe a different thing, and then all of a sudden you've got Spanish, French, Italian, Portuguese, whatever.
Side of Ireland with the Irish language is through their names, and I'm going to show you now how to pronounce them. So this one is Niamhe,
Niamhe,
Niamhe, Niamhe,
Niamhe,
Siopon,
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 Siohan,
Siohan,
Naumhe,
Naumhe,
Naume,
Naume,
Aoif,
Oif,
Aoifi,
Oifbi,
Aoif, Aoifi,
Aoif.
Okay, so this is how you actually pronounce them. Neve, Siobhan, Naomi.
Was he just pulling my leg?
This is how you actually pronounce them. Neve, Siobhan, Naomi, and I think it's Aoife. This one, Aoife. Now, where do they speak Irish in Ireland? Now, as you can see, there are regions all throughout the Republic of Ireland.
Where do they speak native Scottish the most now? Where do they speak native Irish the most now? It seems like the places where the English couldn't quite reach them.
Ireland, where Irish is well spoken, much less so in Northern Ireland, where there is another majority and a different language, which I'll get into in a minute. But there are some regions which you can see are probably just under 70% Irish speakers, and these regions are called Gaeltachts, and there are several. There's some in Donegal, County Mayo, Connemara, Dingle, and West Muskerry are some of the largest ones. And Gaeltacht means Gaelic or Irish speaking region. Now, Irish is doing very well as a language, and it's one of the official languages of the Republic of Ireland alongside English. Now, to look at the Celtic language tree again, obviously Irish comes from Old Irish and before that Primitive Irish. Now, how did Irish come to Ireland? Well, a long time ago, some fancy European farmers brought new bling with them, and while they were bringing that with them, they also brought a new language with them, a very old type of Irish, which we now call Gaelic. And all the languages like Irish and Gaelic, and a few of the other ones I'm going to cover, are part of the Gaelic family of Celtic languages. Now, a lot more happened in the meantime. So, for example, you get the Norsemen coming over and bringing Old Norse, then you also get the English coming over and they conquer an area around Dublin. Now this area keeps expanding, and you also get the Scots coming and moving into the north, which is where my...
So now I'm going to play some of the news from Ireland, which is completely in the Irish language.
Dever mahas a Tronhona. Dead on Terra Aragadish, Michael Noonan, nach Federlesh, Ian Leodu, a Yenever Hurus Silamon Katie Oud, Tugach Connerhy Dive Sardonig and Realtas a Goacht. Turishkeecher go good of Harrogado Kishta Tar Hall on the Mount, Kistach a Gista Pension, Bon Katie, Shinchracha, Lar on Terra Noonan, Lenar Durish Gorge, Sarach and Ivan Khan, Eliminachanif.
Other than like name a few people's names, no clue. That was very different.
How did
those get that shape?
But hold on a minute. Who's this dashing young fellow on the horse? It isn't William of Orange, King of Great Britain, Ireland, Scotland, England, and also...
It's Oliver Cromwell. No, I don't know.
That other place, the Netherlands. Ulster Scots is then mostly considered to be a dialect of the Scots language, which I covered before, having come in from Scotland. Now then, it also makes sense that the highest percentage of speakers of Ulster Scots in Northern Ireland are those in the north, who are then closest geographically to Scotland, where they came from. Now, what's the history behind this? Why are there Scots speakers in Northern Ireland?
Look at that. That's cool. How big is this thing? So obviously the big, that's the eye of the chickadee bird that I see as Ireland. But this thing right here, it's connected to the ocean. So that's like a big saltwater lake, pretty much. Be cool to have like a dock there with boats. You can be in here, and then you can go out in the ocean. That's cool.
Ireland, a traditionally Gaelic or Gaelic speaking area. Once upon a time when times were simple, English speakers lived in England and Irish speakers lived in Ireland. Now, as we already covered in the early Middle Ages, Scots began to develop differently from English. Now, the English in, I think...
Question, does Isle of Man have its own language?
The 12th century invaded part of Ireland around Dublin, and over the next few hundred years they kept expanding and fighting against the Irish. Now, the Irish had one strong base from which they resisted the English, and this was in Ulster. Now, there were Irish Gaelic warlords there who fought constantly against the new invaders, and also the language was a large part of this. The people there were very much still Gaelic speakers and had Gaelic customs and held out against the English, who at this time were also Protestants. So what the English did, who were at this time also unified with the Scottish after James I, was they sent many Englishmen and Scotsmen over to Ulster, to this very Gaelic region, to essentially replace the Irish population. And then
I always wondered what must have happened on the island of Ireland over centuries to make such a vastly different identifying populations on such a small island. Meaning, you know, Protestant Ulster and Catholic Ireland.
Get many people from Scotland who spoke Scots coming into Northern Ireland in an attempt to replace these Gaelic people to assert control over the region, and that's why Scots came into Northern Ireland.
Wales is still a mystery to me. I still just don't even know what. Cardiff, right? Wales is a mystery to me. I want to learn more about it.
The region, and that's why Scots came into Northern Ireland.
Wasn't that the song sung in Shaka Zulu, in Zulu?
I think it's fair to say that Welsh...
It's crazy. I can travel like 4,000 miles that way to like Juneau, Alaska, or like 3,000 miles that way to Los Angeles, or 2,000 miles that way to Florida, tip of Florida, and people will sound exactly the same. And this is so fascinating how there's so many accents and languages in such a small area. We do have Quebec. French speakers.
Has got a little bit of a reputation of being a language with lots of difficult sounds and really long words that people really don't want to have to learn because they are a real nightmare to get out.
Those are the fun ones.
But, you know, this is completely unfounded, and in this one I'm just going to look at some really easy little Welsh phrases, you know, very small, a few words, so there's nothing to worry about. So the first one,
Shwme.
Shwme is sort of like hello or welcome. Then there's
Dwi Hilbert.
Dwi Hilbert, which means my name is Hilbert.
Borda.
Borda, which means good morning.
Lenfan Perian Girian Goria Chilria and Dorian Lantiris go go go. I just said a bunch of stuff and then go go go.
Is a place where you can visit in Wales. It's very nice. Again, nothing too challenging.
I want to know what percent increase in tourist revenue has that town gotten since that famous YouTube video of the weatherman saying it?
there.
It's probably gotten pretty annoying too.
So where in Wales do they speak Welsh? Well, pretty much throughout Wales some degree of Welsh is spoken, although in some areas, especially such as Anglesey, Gwynedd and Pembrokeshire, there are clusters of Welsh speakers. Now,
you guys see the lady or like a guy with a helmet firing a gun?
Welsh is the only other language in the United Kingdom, apart from English, to have official status, but then only in Wales. And Welsh is taught in, I believe, all schools, and I think roughly a third of schools are completely taught in Welsh. The language of instruction there is Welsh. And as you can see, on the west coast, on the western half of Wales, is where Welsh is most spoken. Again, because the eastern side, with the border with England, is where English has had more of an effect on the people there.
Very mountainous, right?
So again, if we look at the Celtic...
I was always, learning about British history, just how long Wales kept independent from England, even while England was really fighting with Scotland. I'm like, either Welsh people are maybe they're crazy and the English didn't want to deal with them, or maybe just they had a lot of protection from mountainous.
Has had more of an effect.
Sorry, if you're from Wales, I'm not saying you're crazy. I'm just a question.
On the people there. So again, if we look at the Celtic language tree, we see that Wales, instead of being in the Gwydelic branch like Irish and Scottish Gaelic, is in the Brythonic branch. Now let's have a look at why there is this distinction between the two. So first of all, once upon a time you had the Brythonic languages being spoken in Britain. Now if you remember, in Ireland, a different group of European farmers, this is the theory that's believed, went to Ireland, and there they spoke the Gwydelic languages, although the Gwydelic and Brythonic languages were still related. However, when the Anglo-Saxons came in, they brought in a Germanic language, so more like Frisian or Dutch or German, and they pushed the Britons, the Brythonic speakers, into the corners. And one of the theories is that then Welsh and Cornish are simply versions of the Brythonic that were being spoken there, as well as possibly Pictish. I'm going to play a little bit of audio from a...
Can I just say, so pretty much, so this is what I'm getting, okay? This is what I'm understanding, is that the UK okay. So the UK is over here, right? And it's going to be populated by people after these lands are populated, right? And anyone who is there isn't going to be very powerful as the people here. So what we see as English, or a lot of the British Isles languages, is the result of a bunch of peoples from here going over there and like taking over, and then others taking over here. And so English is just a convoluted jumble of a mess of Northwestern and Northern European languages. Is that fair? Am I simplifying? Here we go.
Spoken there, as well as possibly Pictish. I'm going to play a little bit of audio from a Welsh vlog channel, which is completely in Welsh. And again, if you want to know where any of the clips came from, or want to watch them again, or find out more about the languages, then just follow the links in the description below.
Helo, a chroeso i fy sianel. Gwnewch eich hunan yn gyffyrddus. Dwi'n mynd i fod yn gwneud vlogs fel mae'r enw yn dreadaeth chi, a maen nhw'n mynd i fod yn Gymraeg fel ydych chi'n gallu clywed. Dwi'n gwybod os di'r rhan fwy o'n chi yn gwylio'r sianeli mawr vlogio fatha Zoella, Pointless Blog, Max Butler, heina I gyd. Dwi yn, ac o'n i'n sbio ar I fideos nhw, ac o'n i'n meddwl, o, ta beth os na i'n Cymraeg, oherwydd mae vlogio yn beth poblogaidd I wneud, ac o'n i'n meddwl, os na blentyn Cymraeg.
Here's 40 shillings on the drum for those.
Okay. What's interesting is that out of all of these languages, the Irish one was the only one that did, other than like you could hear when they said names, other the Irish one was the only one of these languages so far that I've heard that sounded nothing like English. Like, it didn't even have a tinge of English in my mind. Whereas even Welsh, and same with Scots and with Scottish Gaelic, they all had, it's hard to explain, this sort of like this sort of English sound at the end of a word or a sentence. Like there's something Englishy or even American-y. Well, American speaks English. I have a really good point, and I'm just not explaining it. It sounds like a English person trying to. They sound Englishy, but Irish didn't.
Max Butler.
I had a really cool point, and I just can't explain it.
Dwi yn, ac o'n i'n sbio ar ei fideos yna, ac o'n i'n meddwl, o, ta beth o Saesneg yn Cymraeg, oherwydd mae'n vlogio yn beth poblogaidd i wneud, ac o'n i'n meddwl, os na blentyn Cymraeg.
It does something die, but yeah, there's definitely some Nordic sounding and Dutch. Is that the Hadrian's Wall? I'm just... Jesus.
How means...
I was distracted by that man's amazing chest hair.
How means hello in Cornish. Fatla
How, like a Native American.
How means hello in Cornish.
How.
Fatla Geneth means how are you. Cernau is the Cornish word for Cornwall. Now, where in Cornwall do they speak Cornish? Now, Cornish was actually very much in danger of being lost forever because it...
Cornish pasties.
Did actually go... Was actually... very much in danger of being lost forever because it did actually go extinct, but there have been efforts made in recent years to revive the language, and as such, even though there are very small numbers at the moment, there are areas where Cornish is picking up. Now, some of the main areas in Cornwall are Padstow, Bodmin Moor, Land's End and the Lizard, and these are all areas where Cornish is spoken to some degree. Now, I've put this map together myself using other information to clearly show where some clusters of Cornish speakers throughout the county of Cornwall are living, but as you can see, very small numbers at the moment. Now, Cornish is another Celtic language, and it's in the same vein of Celtic languages as Welsh is, so it's slightly more...
Manx? Is that Isle of Man?
Distantly related to Irish and Scottish Gaelic, and Cornish as well came from the Brythonic languages. The same situation with Welsh. When the Anglo-Saxons came in, they pushed the Britons, the Celtic inhabitants of Britain, to the corners, and Cornwall actually held out for a very long time. There were people in Cornwall called the Dumnonii, and the Dumnonii held out against the Anglo-Saxons until they were eventually conquered, I think, by King Athelstan of Wessex, but for a very long time Cornwall was an independent Celtic kingdom, and they retained the language right the way up into the early 19th century, and now they are trying to revive the language once again. The first time that I ever heard the Cornish language was actually when I was watching TV, and there was an advert for Kelly's Cornish ice cream which was partially in Cornish, and Kelly's actually does a lot of work to promote the Cornish language, so I'm actually going to show you that advert now to showcase what the Cornish language sounds like. Now, it is partially in English and partially in Cornish, so good luck telling it apart.
Imurez, Nav Cavallo, a Kelly's Cornish ice cream, ag you as tasty as. We're il cavos agon suerial splan, nigga misk, honeycomb crunch, praline caramel, agon wev, berry eaten mess. If you gris old gans clotted cream, dwarf bukis lale. Hans prif you moi in Mons Nagus, a local supermarket. My hello, take home 6 new parlour flavours. Get on.
My wife?
Kelly's, Cornish for ice cream.
So it was like Spanglish or Creole. Like, that didn't really seem like it literally sounded like he was switching off one rather than... I like that a lot. That was really good.
And the last language we're going to look at today is the Manx language from the Isle of Man.
Cool.
And just like Irish and Scottish Gaelic, in the Manx language, the word for their language is also something similar to Gaelic. Now we're going to have a look at some Manx words and phrases. Mormai is good morning.
Mormai, faster mai.
Mai is good afternoon. Gudamayad is thank you, and Galmileshkal.
Well, the T makes a K.
Is excuse me. Blah is flower. And
blah. Sorry, it just sounds like a automatopoeia. No, what's the word? What's the term for a word that is supposed to explain a sound? Like bam, or swoosh, or zap. What was I saying?
And Galmileshkal is excuse me. Blah is flower, and Cashel means castle, which is similar to the Irish Cashel. Where do they speak the different dialects? Well, you have Northern Manx, which is spoken in historically these parishes, and Southern Manx, which is spoken there. And it's generally around the edges, the north and south, where Manx is strongest on the Isle of Man. Manx is, again, a Celtic language. It is a Godelic Celtic language from Old Irish, so more closely related to Scottish Gaelic and Irish than to Welsh and Cornish. Now, how did the Isle of Man end up speaking a Godelic language instead of a Brythonic language? Well, if we go back again, people in Britain spoke Brythonic, and people in Ireland spoke Godelic as a rule. But the Irish, they came across and they founded the kingdom of Dal Riada, if you remember from Scottish Gaelic. And they also settled on the Isle of Man, bringing their language, Old Irish, with them. Now, of course, then you get people like the Norsemen coming with Viking raids, and Old Norse is introduced, although Old Norse had but a little effect on the Manx language. Although they were an important presence in the area, they ruled the Isle of Man and the Lords of the Isles for quite a while. Now I'm going to play a little bit of Manx being spoken.
Brian, just inched out back in McCown, well, Ned Madril as in Gow.
Is that... What's his name? He played Austin Powers' dad in Goldmember. Michael Caine? No. Basil.
Brian, just inched out back in McCown, well, Ned Madril as in Gow.
She, Remnish Gold McGee to Marish of Rega, Kasogin Shilia, Eloti Dugaza. Australian Grey, Nakdugly Mona Gale, down and could smooth. Remy Michaelrish, Ned Mandrel, train, well, Kate Naga that you had as Remy Jinu recorders, Jay. Hug me Shilia, during a crane, Kate Naga, yes.
Some honourable mention.
Again, unlike the Irish one remains still the only one that sounded very foreign. But that one, it sounded like an English accent at points. I hope that makes sense.
For other
yes.
Some honourable mentions for other languages of the British Isles are Pictish, Norn and Cumbric, but unfortunately they didn't stick around long enough to be included in this one. Alright everybody, thank you very much for watching this video about the other languages spoken in the British Isles. Now if you're interested in this kind of thing and you're new, just hit the subscribe button and check out some of my other videos. I've got several.
Ooh, basic Dutch, yes. I am subscribed. I love History with Hilbert, okay?
Videos on sort of the language and history that's being included in this one, and in future I'm going to probably make specific videos for all of these languages at some point. So everyone, thanks very much for watching. I am of course History with Hilbert, and I hope you'll tune in again next time.
It's such a great channel. All right, guys. I hope I don't care, okay? I'm past the point where I care about embarrassing myself. I'm trying to learn. I'm arguing with myself. That was a really cool video. Again, I'm still curious. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? About the Irish one being very different from the others. Cool. Hope you're all doing well. Hope you can teach me something, or maybe if you learned something, let me know. And join the Discord if you'd like. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye. Love y'all. Chin up if you're not doing well. Don't worry. Emotions are fickle, my friend. Bye.